Hey everyone, in this section we're going to cover playing audio in Corona. Now, you're not going to be able to hear the sounds coming from my computer in this recording, but if you follow the directions along and use the sound provided, you should get the same reaction as I do. Hopefully you have speakers that work on your computer. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at the library. So in the Corona docs you have the audio library. And of course there's a whole series of functions for audio, and we're going to go over most of these in this tutorial. There's also the guide for audio that covers some of the usage, the functions. It describes the various forms of audio and how to control it. And both of those links are in the final example as well. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and load a sound. So we're going to do the new sound is audio.loadSound. Now there's two ways to load a sound. There is load sound or load stream. Now, a stream is better for a larger element, such as a song or a voice dialogue, anything that goes on beyond a minute and is much larger. It basically loads it as it's needed while it's playing, whereas the load sound functions load the whole audio file immediately. Now, in order to play our sound, we just do audio.play and then insert the sound that we just created. And you should get a little sound effect from your device from doing so. So now let's go ahead and take a look at setting volume. So you can set volume and set it for the entirety of your system. Volume is a 0 to 1 variable, so 1 being the loudest and 0 being muted. So we're going to set it to half volume here. And you should get the sound at half volume. Now if you put it something like 0.1, you'll get it much, much quieter. And of course 1 at full volume. So you can play around with that, try to get a good feel of what level you want. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at channels. So the audio library has a series of channels. Each channel is its own set of volume or sound. So you can have multiple things playing at once. So if you wanted up to 32 different channels to play, you can have up to 32 sounds running at once. So when we play a sound, it just puts it in the first available channel. So it finds a channel that's not being used and puts it in there. So for now, our sound should be playing on channel 1 because it's the first available sound. And we can actually set, for instance, volume per channel. So if we do channel at 0.1 here in our volume setting, then we should have a very quiet sound now because it's playing it at the first channel. So we'll go ahead and set this down to 0.1. For channel 1, and you should get a much quieter sound. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at what happens if you set the volume for the overall element after setting the channel to POTUS 1. So you'll see that it is still quiet because we set the volume to full for overall, but this channel setting overrides that. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the other elements, such as audio options when playing a sound. So see here in the final example we have a whole series. So when you play a sound, you can have it default to the first available channel, or you can actually set your channel yourself. So we're going to go ahead and create an options table. And the first thing we're going to do is give it a channel. So we're going to give this channel 2. Then we're going to set it to loop. Have it loop twice. And then we're going to add this options to the sound that we're playing. So it should now loop this, it'll play the sound multiple times, and its channel will be the second channel instead of the first now. So we can also set the fade in, which is the how quickly it fades into the sound, so whether it starts at full volume or not. So this is going to basically stop the sound from making any noise right off the bat because it's going to start at such a low volume. So if you put this at something like, let's say 500, half a second, you'll hear each time it loops through the sound, it will be slightly louder until it reaches its full volume. Try something like 8 loops. You'll hear it kind of come in from a low volume and kind of increase as it goes. So that is fade in. We also have duration. Go ahead and change this to duration. And remove loops. If this if this particular sound lasted longer than the duration here, it will actually cut off. So let's try. Unfortunately, the sound I provided is very short, so you'll really only notice that effect if you put it down to somewhere around 40 milliseconds. It'll actually cut the sound off. So if you have like a long song, but you only want it to play for, let's say, the first 2 to 3 seconds, you set the duration. And there you have it. So that's the basics of the options. And then we're going to take a look at onComplete. So just like any of the other objects that we have, you can actually give an onComplete function. So we're going to do print sound, and you'll see here we have a function that'll print when the sound is complete. So now it's going to print when the sound is over. So let's go ahead and get rid of duration and give this a run. The function has to come first because it needs to be loaded before this is actually played. And you'll see sound complete. So let's add some loops. So you'll notice that the onComplete only runs when it's over, not per loop. So it will only run when the full thing is complete. Let's go ahead and give it a duration. And you'll see that this time the sound complete was immediate because it will play when the sound is over regardless of the duration. So if the duration is longer than the sound, it'll play there. Now if the duration is shorter, it'll play when the duration triggers. So lastly, let's take a look at some of the other options. You have the ability to stop all sounds. So you'll see here that you really didn't get any sound because we're stopping it the moment we started it. So if we were to put this on a timer, we could have it stop after, a second or something like that. You can also put a channel in here, so you can stop a specific channel. So you'll see that this actually didn't stop the sound because we're on channel 2. Whereas if we put this to channel 2, it'll stop that. We also have pause, so you can pause audio. And let's try that on channel 1. So you'll see it doesn't pause it. And then the channel that we're on, it pauses our sound. So let's try real quick making 2 different versions of our sound, 2 different sets of options. One that loops 6 times, and then one that just plays. So we're going to go ahead and have 2 audio.plays, one without the options and one with. So you'll see that we have one looping 6 times and one just playing. Let's go ahead and run that. And you'll notice that we're not actually getting this one to run because this is still paused. So if we comment that out, you'll get 6 sounds playing instead of just 1 because it's playing this one now. So we can actually pause, and you also have the option to resume. Resume starts a paused element wherever it was. So we're going to get a little fancy here and create a second options. This one's going to have the onComplete pause sound. And then we're going to create a function here that pauses the sound on channel 2. Oops. So now we're going to give this options 2 to our first version playing, and then we have a second version using the original options. So we have one doing both of those option sets here. So this one's going to loop 6 times, but when this one runs, when it's done, it's going to pause this one. So we should get about 1 full sound effect before this function runs and pauses the element on channel 2. So it's pausing the channel 2 one. So why don't we change this to audio.resume channel 2, and then we're going to have channel 2 immediately paused. So now what's happening is when we play both sounds, the audio on channel 2 is being paused, but then when this one finishes, it's running this function, pause sound, and then resuming it. So now you should get the 6 loops. So there you have it. That's the basics of audio. You can take a look at the library to find out more information and some of the more advanced systems in audio. Thanks for joining.